So one of the questions I get a lot is, after my back pain is better, and it doesn't really matter if it's better from rehab or injections or surgery, how do I make sure it doesn't come back? Because if you've ever had it and it's bad, you don't ever want it again. And there are 5 main areas that, if they're working the way they should and you're doing the things that you need to, your pain won't come back. We've developed a process and a strategy and a system for eliminating back pain, but we've also identified the exact components that will contribute or perpetuate your back pain. So by solving that, that's how you can live the rest of your life pain-free. We've done this for 25 years, 26,000 patients. We've done a lot of studies. Our studies are on what causes back pain and how to get rid of it. And again, we've defined 5 steps. If you do these 5 things and you get them right, your back pain won't come back. And I'm going to go through each of the 5 so you understand it. And when you understand what causes back pain and you take the mystery out of it, it's a lot easier to get rid of it and prevent it from coming back. And this comes from our program that we have. It's called 10X. If you want more information about 10X, you can click on the link up here. But it's really about these 5 components. And it starts with the spine. So I'm going to go through the spine to show you exactly where the pain comes from, so you know what you need to do to prevent it. Because once you understand why, it's a lot easier to get rid of it. Because if you don't understand why, you're always having to guess what it is that's causing it. It's really hard to get rid of it. So this takes all the mystery out of it. So typical spine looks like this. 24 vertebrae between the head and the hips. The vertebrae are the bones. In between each bone, there is a disc. The disc allows for motion. Inside is the spinal cord. The spine is designed to protect the spinal cord. And there's little nerves that exit through an opening here called the foramen. But the key to back pain is the disc. The disc, as it breaks down under load, will start to get aggravated and cause you a little bit of pain. And the key to the disc is the fact that the disc is a lot like a jelly donut, in the sense that the outside of the disc, there's thick material. Inside the disc, there's a jelly-like substance. And this jelly gives stability to the disc the same way air gives stability to your tire. It's very, very, very important because it distributes the load evenly in all directions. But what can happen as a result of wear and tear, bending wrong, poor posture, sitting too long, a lot of different reasons, what will happen is the nucleus, the jelly, will start to push out against the disc. So we're looking at it from the top view here. Nucleus will start to push out, and then what it does is it creates an inflammatory process, creates a little bit of inflammation inside the annulus because it's under too much load, and then the annulus starts to tear. As it starts to tear, what happens is the nucleus slowly pushes out. This is the tear over here. This is the key to back pain. This is the key to back pain that doesn't go away. This is also the key to making sure your back pain doesn't come back. It's all about this little tear. So as it tears in the beginning, what happens is it starts to bulge a little bit. As it starts to bulge out, you're going to start to get a little bit of pain. Obviously, you develop some inflammation. That's going to cause you pain. But over time, what can happen is it can tear further through. So you can have any one of these and have back pain. And the key is you want to make sure you don't do the things that aggravate it. And this is all about the things that aggravate it. But as this process goes on, this nucleus dries out. As it starts to dry out, same thing. Disc starts to get closer together. That's a degenerated disc. This is my MRI. We do what we do in our clinics and through these exercise programs because of what happened to me. I found a way out. I struggled for years and years and years and years and years. But it really is all about this right here. Now, it can be a little tear or it can be a really big tear, but too much motion on that tear aggravates it. That's the key to all of this. So the goal really is to create stability durability, resilience, and toughness. So you want the ability for this segment where you've had the pain to be resilient for your everyday activities. And again, it's a 5-step process. We're going to talk about each step because each step is just important. Because if you have a breakdown in step 1, that's going to cause you pain. But step 1 could be good, but if you have a breakdown in step 2, that could cause you pain. Any one of these areas, if it breaks down, you're going to relapse into pain because you're going to be aggravating the disc. It's preventing the aggravation of the disc. This is why you had the back pain. The goal is to make sure you don't do the things that aggravate it. What is that? Proper movement, proper posture and positions, how you sit, how you bend, how you lift. Stability, meaning are the muscles doing what they should be doing? We're going to go through all of these. Mobility, are the joints that do all the movement, are they moving properly? If they're not moving properly, you're going to add more load to the disc. The key is to make sure everything is moving and then is strong enough to do the activity. If it's not strong enough, then you get a breakdown. So what do we know? With that tear in the disc, there are very specific ways to move throughout the day. If you move in a way that's aggravating in that disc, you're going to aggravate the condition. The pain will come back. So there's definitely faulty movement patterns, and we have what's called a relief routine. The relief routine is 22 exercises or 22 videos on proper movement patterns. Most of the time what happens is you have a faulty movement pattern, and that faulty movement pattern starts to aggravate your problem because you're moving in positions where the discs are getting aggravated. What we find a lot is patients, what happens is instead of using their hips to bend, these joints here, what they do is they use their spine to bend. And if you're a spine bender, what happens is you're bending over the disc and you start to get the breakdown. But it also can happen when you sit. If you're sitting in a position that's overloading the disc, that's specific for your disc, then you're going to get a breakdown. Again, it's a breakdown in the function and the stability that causes the pain. So it's bending, lifting, sitting, standing, all these things. If you do them with the proper motion and the proper posture, you won't aggravate the disc. That's number 1. It's the constant motion over the disc that aggravates it. You can feel really good for a while and say, all right, what happened? I don't know what happened. And pain came back. Or worse yet, I see this all the time. Get a fusion. They put the screws in there, and what happens with the fusion is you start to bend, and now you're doing all the bending on the disc above. Instead of using your hips to bend, you're using your spine to bend, and that disc blows out very fast. Matter of fact, it can happen very quickly after a fusion where you blow out the disc above it because of the movement patterns. Are you taught these after surgery? No. Why not? Who knows? Okay, we're not making this up. This is scientific literature. So it's a combination of how you move, but also how your posture is on the disc. If it's flexed too much or overextended too much, you're gonna start to aggravate that disc. But everybody's different. Some people need more flexion, some people need more extension. If you need more extension and all you're doing is flexing, you're going to aggravate the disc. It goes into your posture. What happens? Motion patterns over the annulus cause the annulus to break down, causes an inflammatory process. You keep aggravating that, it doesn't get better. That's what causes chronic back pain. The motion pattern. So there's a key to how you move. That is, it's in our 10X program because the 10X covers everything. But the daily routine is how to move. It's the routine of movement patterns that are going to take the pressure off the disc. What's number 2? Number 2 is making sure the muscles that support it, which are your core muscles. Everybody says core. Well, one of them is you have to have a strong core because your core gives you stability in the spine, gives you endurance. So if you have to hold this position like this, but the muscles can't hold it because they can't hold for the length of time you need it, then it starts to break down, then you're gonna aggravate the disc. That's why the core is so very important, because it prevents all this sort of abnormal, faulty movement patterns. The core is very good for that. So number 1 is motion and posture. Number 2 is your core. The core is all the muscles that support your spine the front and the back, including your shoulders. It's very important that you have stable shoulders that work with your hips, because when you don't, that's when you get a lot of rotation through your spine. And we've talked about the rotation. Okay, so that's number 2, is the stabilization. It's the core. Very, very important. Number 3 is to make sure that you're getting proper movement in the hips and proper movement in the shoulders. If you're not getting proper movement there, then you start to get movement in the spine. A good example is golfers. Happens a lot with golfers. The power of the golf swing comes through the hips. If the hips aren't doing the work or they're really tight, what happens is you start to rotate through your spine. Rotation through the spine, what does it do? It aggravates the disc. Also, it's very important for squatting to have proper motion of those hips. So if they're not working the way they should, if they're too tight, you're going to have a breakdown in the disc. So it's very important to restore the motion in the shoulders and in the hips. Again, if you have a breakdown in any of these areas, your pain is going to come back. It's pretty specific. Number 4 is now you have to create the strength in the primary movers. So the primary mover for the spine is the glutes. It's the big muscle in the back. Those need to be strong, because you need to do the work with these muscles, not with these muscles. If you're doing the work here and you have the endurance, then you're not going to get a breakdown of the disc. So when the pain goes away, you can actually make it go away and never, ever, ever come back. And very important to have it in the hips. So you have to have strong hips. You have to have the strength for the movement patterns. So we work a lot with that. Okay? Work on the glutes. The glutes are the most important muscle for the spine, for sure. Squatting. Some people want to go back to squatting. You can squat very heavy weights after a herniated disc. Very heavy weights, because I did it. And you can do it if you have proper form, and you have proper strength, and you have the proper motion, and you don't go too deep. If you squat too deep, you start to aggravate the disc. So number 4 was the motion of the hips with the strength at the hips. And then number 5 is load tolerance. What does that mean? It means you can be strong in your core, you can have proper movement patterns, you can have proper hip strength to sort of move the spine in ways that the spine's not going to aggravate that disc. But if you don't have the strength for the activity that you're going to perform, you aggravate the disc. So what does that mean? It means if you're going to go out and run and you don't have the endurance and the strength to run long distances, and you try to run long distances before you're ready, then you're going to start to aggravate the disc. Now, I have a picture, and I want to show you because it sort of illustrates what that means. But if you're a golfer, you have to have very specific motion and very specific strength for the hips, depending on your activity. If you don't have the ability to perform that activity, meaning how much strength do you need? If you don't have that strength, then you're going to have a breakdown of the spine. So we call that, really the load tolerance. So if you don't have the strength for the tolerating the load, you're going to have a breakdown of the spine. So in this particular case, this gentleman's holding an exercise bar. Now, this is not necessarily something you're going to have to do unless you're exercising, but this illustrates a point. So if you're holding this, and these bars weigh 45 pounds, and you don't have the shoulder strength to hold it, well, then you're going to have a breakdown in the spine. And if you don't have the hip strength to hold it, you're going to have a breakdown. But also, if you don't have the endurance in the core, which is the stability, you're going to have a breakdown. So if you don't have the strength necessary to perform the activity, then you're going to get a breakdown. So it's those 5 things is why your back pain comes back, but there's a way to solve all 5 of those, because that's how you solve back pain. We call it the 10X. With 10X, if you do the activities, you're going to solve the problem. You're going to solve the problem of the movement patterns. You're going to solve the problem of the stability. You're going to solve the problem of restoring motion. You're going to solve the problem of creating functional strength. Shoulders and glutes, very important. And then load tolerance. We have a program for golfers. We have a program for baseball players. But the thing is, you have to build up these 5 fundamentals, or at least these 4 fundamentals, and then define what activities you want to do and make sure you have the strength necessary. What's the load? How much do you need? Okay? So when your strength is less than what you need that is required for the activity, then what happens is you damage the disc. All comes down to damage of the disc. So what is it? Proper movement patterns. Takes the load off the disc. Faulty movement patterns aggravate it. Stability, core. The core muscles holding the spine, so when you do the activities, you're not getting a lot of motion in the spine. Core is here. Want to make sure this is nice and strong and tough, okay? And then you can do the activities without all this. All the spine motion aggravates the disc. Restore the motion of the hips. That way the hips are doing the work, not the spine. Create the functional strength in the glutes and the shoulders, and then have the ability to perform the activity. Strong muscles, functional movement patterns, avoid the aggravation to the disc. You can eliminate your back pain, you can have it never ever come back. If you satisfy those 5 needs, not hard to do. We have the ability to do it. Now, this program, we call it 10X. It's $47 a month, takes about 3 months to go through the program. And then if you want to do more after that, we have people do more to make sure they have the strength necessary. And to get the program, you can go to totalbackpainrelief.com, 10X order. That'll get you there. Those are the 5 reasons that your back pain comes back. There are no other reasons. I mean, one of the reasons really is about the hips, but we've talked about the glutes. Sometimes people have what's called a dominant hip. They have a right side dominant hip. Right side is a lot stronger than the left side. Well, when you need to use that left side and you don't have the strength there, what it does is causes rotation of the spine, and that aggravates the disc. But that goes back to glutes. So your hips are important, your spine is important, all the things that we've talked about are all important. Go here, get the program, make sure your back pain doesn't come back. That's the goal. That's the goal. It has to go through those 5 components. You can have a breakdown in any one of the 5 and your back pain's gonna come back. That's it. Mystery solved. That's why it happens. That's the truth. All right, so that's it. I'll see you this week. I'm going to do more videos.